female athletes are all lesbians. Yeah.
Wow.
Thoughts?
There are, and there's not in every. I'm sure it's across all the boards of every sport.
Very similar for men. I'm sure there are a lot
Yeah.
of gay men in sport, and no one seems to shout about that necessarily. Like, it's not a big deal at all. So why is it a big deal in women's sport? Like, in wherever you are, people are gay or they're straight. Like,
Or sporting or not sporting.
yeah, exactly. It doesn't
Doesn't
make
make a
any
difference.
It's just
any
like
difference.
it's frustrating for athletes who, you know, they might find that as a negative. So when they're going into their sport and they're at that age where they're worried about what people think and what people say, it can then put off girls age 14 or 15 because they're told, oh, rugby, all girls that play rugby are lesbians, when actually no, that's not true at all. And so yeah, it's just that kind of, it's all right once you get to your guys' age and you don't care and you've been playing rugby long enough. It's just trying to keep girls in each sport at that.
And also, so what? Why does that matter at all?
Yeah.
I don't. It's not even a.
Because we're going to make it and shower together.
Apart from that reason.
I think in female sport there's probably fewer closeted gay people than in men's sport, which I think is probably, well, definitely a better thing, and a privilege that there's not the stigma that being gay is a problem as there is in men's sport as there is in women's sport.
That's true. Which is actually a positive, like a massive positive, especially for mental health and things like that. Whereas you hear a lot about like men being very uncomfortable, like coming out as gay, whereas if it's something that's not at all, it's not an issue in rugby. So say you are gay and you want to go find a sport and you think, actually, do you know what, there's a lot of gay people that play women's rugby, I'll go play because I'll fit in naturally.
Yeah.
You can spin it on its head and it'd be a positive. Someone feels like they fit in, but they might not feel like they fit in anywhere else. So, you know, it's an interesting one with lots of different angles.
You can't play sport on your period.
Oh man, but we can make sandwiches in the kitchen. That's ridiculous.
Don't joke about cricket please.
I think it's just, I'm a woman, I have a body, we all have bodies and stuff happens, but yeah, I never let it interfere with any other aspect of my life. I don't know why sport would be any different.
Yeah, women are expected to go to work on their period just like normal, like it doesn't change anything, so why wouldn't we go to our training sessions? For some of us, playing sport is your job, so it doesn't change anything, no matter what day of the week it is, time of month it is.
I think if you understand it as well, it can be used to your advantage because it actually, like, there's so much science behind where you are in your cycle and they're now trying to do so much work within it. Whereas actually there are certain points when you're better at training than others and understanding in it rather than it being a taboo subject. If people can actually understand when's best for them to train during their cycle and when is like they're more like there's more injury risk and things like that, it's just so much more positive to talk about rather than it be like, oh, don't do anything, you might cry, I don't know, you might cry, that's fine, but you can still play your sport.
Yeah.
I think South Africa Cricket like monitor their S&C programs around the menstrual cycle.
Yeah.
And like one of the players is showing it and it's really clever, like how they've calculated it in their lighter sessions or their heavier sessions, or like their harder sessions based on where they are in their cycle.
Yeah.
Just quite like if you play to your advantage, like
Yeah,
definitely.
it can be a massive advantage.
It's fun too. Don't ignore that one.
Okay, women are weak and fragile.
Do we look weak and fragile?
I was going to say, I think just us sitting here just proves that women are not weak and fragile. I mean, I don't know many, like, I don't know even know how you describe a weak and fragile sportswoman. Like, is that a thing? I don't really know.
I think to get anywhere in any sport you play, you're not weak and fragile. Like to get to any level, even playing youth sport, you know, you're still strong, you're hitting the ball, you're throwing the ball, whatever you're doing within your respective sports. So I think that's just like that's a dreadful statement.
Not just physically, mentally.
I was
not
just
mentally and physically weak and fragile. I was just a no.
Yeah.
To get to the top of anything, or even in sport, you have to be strong. Like you have to have mental toughness and drive. So weak and fragile is not not words to describe anybody that has ambition and drive to be at the top of whatever they want to be at the top of.
I feel like it's just a way of throwing some sort of negative stigma, like, because it's like opposites like butch, like you said earlier, and it's sort of like, it's just like any excuse to make something like a negative statement, that's what it's thrown in there, so eventually like, this drive like crazy.
Yeah.
And butch.
Work that one out.
But you're also too muscly to tell a boyfriend.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So I must be
everyone.
gay.
So I must be gay.
Yeah, I think it's just bizarre that we've heard so many of these, and yeah, they contradict each other.
Well, like, that's such describing an ill person, like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Netball is just basketball for girls.
Oh yeah.
See, this one I don't understand because there is women's basketball. They didn't need to create a whole other sport for women to play basketball. Although, incidentally, that is how netball originally began. It's just a different sport, and it's different. It's similar to basketball in the fact that there's a ball and you shoot into a net, and you play in a similar sized court. But apart from that, there are very different sports with different, physicalities and different skills. I don't think you can really compare the two.
I just don't understand why there's a
Yeah.
need to compare, like,
Yeah. There's nothing to stop women playing basketball or men playing netball, so why does it matter?
Just live in their
They're
own
two different
entity.
sports. Men and women can play both of them. Why do they need to be compared or anything like that?
yeah.
Yeah, realistically, all sport branches off another. Like, our
Must be
sport is like American football without equipment, or whatever people say. But at the end of the day, it's an established sport, and people have worked hard to get to where they are. So whether people are like, oh, you guys might be good basketball players, it doesn't matter if you're amazing netballers. Like, I think just owning what your sport is also is a big thing.
Netball's a non-contact sport. I feel like everyone knows, yeah, but that's not true. Netball's vicious, like, it's so physical.
Netball is, by the rules, a non-contact sport, but if you've watched any top-level netball game, even a local league, you'd know it's not non-contact. It's a very fast and physical game. People are getting taken out all the time. To be honest, I'd recommend you actually watch a game of netball before you make a statement like that.
Okay, so the first statement is you throw like a girl.
Classic.
I think the thing that really irritates me is, like, as a woman in sport now, I'm surrounded by people that we can laugh that statement off, but young girls that are coming up, it's kind of ridiculous for them to have to hear that from their first gym class.
Quite a common one in cricket, that is. You can't throw it in from the boundary. Yeah, I agree with you that I think young girls, when they're coming in, don't need to hear statements like that because it's not good for their confidence.
It's not sexy to get sweaty. As one of the sweatiest athletes I know, personally, I'm not sweating for anyone except myself to become a better athlete for my team. I don't care if I look sexy or not. While I sweat, I'm getting stronger and better at my sport.
Yeah, I feel like we're like probably the sweatiest people at training, always like dripping, but I think it just means we're like working hard. It's like we're not there to like try and like make this persona feel like being sexy or whatever. Like you're literally there for your team, like to work hard and get a better athlete, like you said. So
I guess we've all got those opinions. It's trying to put it into like young girls that it's fine to get sweaty and it's fine to run around and get active, and it doesn't matter. Nobody cares what you look like when you're having fun and you're playing your sport.
There's times to be sweaty, there's times to be sexy.
yeah. Do you have a smaller ball?
We actually do.
Ours is a little bit smaller and a little bit lighter, but I think that's because it travels quicker through the air. It's a little bit lighter.
But like, it makes sense. You know, we'll happily admit that we're not as strong as men. Like, that's natural. So it makes our game more exciting if the ball's a little bit smaller because we've got smaller hands, and the ball's a little bit lighter so that we can keep our game as exciting as the men's game.
I think it comes up in rugby too, or I think the big thing is playing field. Like, they're shocked that like women can cover the same amount of ground as a man can, but we do play with the same size ball. But yeah, growing up, I had people that they're like, "Oh, what are the rule changes from men's to women's rugby?" But it's all the exact same. So.
Oh, here we go. Women don't want to do heavy weights in case they get too muscly or bulky. I literally, when I was at school, every girl that went to the gym like would just do cardio and didn't want to do weights because of that reason. Yeah, it's like with arms, everyone always thinks like, don't want like arms, don't want to be like big and strong.
Because they think they're going to turn out like some male weightlifter that he's in the gym every day doing.
I think a lot of it's based on performance, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like you just have to separate that completely and go, this is for my performance, this is how I'm going to get to the next level of being better.
Yeah.
But also though, doing weights doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get massive. Like if you look at the education now, and like if you go to a gym, people will say if you want to, lose weight and get in better shape, do weights because it's actually better than tone up, rather than just running. Like that's a very old way of thinking about it. Whereas now I think it's become more fashionable to do weights. Obviously, I think there's just fashionable weights where you do tone up, and then there's obviously getting strong. But I think it's becoming more accepted to be stronger for women, whereas before I think if you looked really muscly it was a bit like, ugh. Whereas now people find it more attractive.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Men won't want to go out with you if you're musclier than them.
Sounds like a men problem.
Suit themselves.
I feel like if anything, like sports shows like more than like your muscle, like it's like a good characteristic and like personality shows through sports. So I think it's like a good thing rather than
It's not your problem anyway.
Yeah, I think if a man did have that problem, it's like unfortunately like a confidence thing on his end too.
Yeah.
Which
Says more about them as a person.
yeah.
Maybe he needs to learn to come to the gym with you.
Yeah. Couple goals.
Okay, this is for netball. You have to be tall to play netball.
Well, interestingly, whilst we might be tall compared to you guys, in netball we're both fairly short.
At least you would image it.
As defenders under 6 foot, we're probably some of the shortest defenders in the league. And I'd say it helps being tall if you're playing goal shooter, goalkeeper in the ends, where the balls are probably predominantly going to be coming in high, but in the centre court, being short and quick is definitely more of a strength than your height's going to be.
Yeah, I feel like at the moment, like Twain is our keeper, it's probably like one of the smallest keepers in the league, but yeah, she's getting like ball from like people over 6 foot. So like if you train and like the gym work, like you said, like with the jumpers and all that, like height isn't like a restriction, it's only like, it is one if you let it be. Like if you say, oh, I'm too tall to play, then that's your problem. That's not, the height isn't the problem, do you know what I mean? So I feel like it's not a thing.
I played netball at school and I heard that all the time. You're too short, you're too short. It's like, I know and I'm not going to grow.
Yeah.
I can tell you that.
Women's sport isn't as exciting as men's.
Oh,
I
we
think
get
we
that
get that a lot in
yeah.
cricket because men's bowlers will bowl at 90 mile an hour and women's was the fastest like mid-70s or
Yeah.
But I think it's very different.
Yeah.
It's like a very different sport almost.
Yeah.
Women's is much more tactical and trying to hit a bowl to 45, 50 mile an hour for sixes. In some ways harder than hitting someone bowls 80 mile an hour, which is generate a lot more pace.
Obviously in the men's game, if you took the average scores in a men's game to a women's game, they would be much higher. So automatically people quite often link that to a better game, a more exciting game, because teams are scoring 180, 200 in a T20, when actually a women's game that, the scores are maybe 130 plays 135 is still can be really exciting. And yeah, like Lucy says, slower bowlers can often be harder to hit for boundaries. You've got to be much more tactically aware, and I guess the less comparison between men's and women's cricket for us is better because they are very different games.
I think the tough thing for me for this statement is just that some people that say that they don't even know, because women's sport at times to watch is so inaccessible. You can't just turn on the TV through 7 sports channels and have them all be women's. So I think a lot of the time when people are saying that, it's not even backed up with their opinion. It's just, oh yeah, it's men are better.
It's easy to say.
Yeah.
Quite often as well, I think there is still a difference between, in like a lot of sports, the top kind of few teams and then the kind of next set of teams. So if in a men's league the top team was playing a middle of the road team, it would probably be quite an even game, whereas sometimes in the women's game, because we haven't had enough funding and things like that actually the top team, there is quite a disparity between the top team and say the bottom team, and then they then view the whole thing as unexciting because the top team beat the bottom team 52-0 in rugby or something like that, when actually that's not a fair assumption of the sport in general.
Yeah.
I think also like nowadays as well, when more and more people are coming to watch us play, and you actually all of us, I think people realise how exciting the game is. They just never have given it a chance.
Yeah.
Quite a lot of like my dad obviously loves coming to watch, but actually he quite regularly says actually your games are much more exciting than the men's games because they just smash each other. Whereas for you guys, you have to think elsewhere. Like there are other things that you have to think about. Like you can't just hit each other really hard. You've got to be much more tactical. Which does make it a lot more interesting.
Yeah, I think same with like, because we've like netball's recently got a lot of coverage on Sky, and then it's sort of grown because of that coverage. So it wasn't that it was boring before. It's just that people are now having the opportunity to see how exciting that sport is.
And people always see netball when they like are young and at school, and like when you're like 7 or 8, of course, it's not very exciting. And then kind of that's when the boys play with the girls, and they're like, oh, it's rubbish. Whereas actually, it's not until you're slightly older that it does get better. So if that's the only sport that they've access to is when everyone's young and still learning. If you want to watch a boys' football game when everyone's 7 or 8, it's not the most exciting game either, but everyone continues to follow them and continues to watch, whereas I think girls drop out of sport and actually there's only a few that continue, so you don't see as much.
If women get aggressive in sports, they're hysterical rather than being passionate.
That'll do.
I think, you know that new night
The
that
night
came out?
Yeah,
That's
it's
like
very
the
good,
first
isn't it?
thing
That's
I
really
love.
good.
It's like everyone thinks it's crazy or bad the first time it happens, but then like it evolves,
Yeah.
and from that like everyone like grows.
And like you
from
see
it.
footballers like always arguing with the ref, and then like I think there's a scene with Serena Williams like arguing with the umpire, and everyone was like, oh my goodness, like a woman's like talking back to a man with like authority sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's like you see men do that in everyday lives, like not even in sport, in the workplace as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, Serena Williams got a lot of stick for the last, was it the Australian Open?
Yeah.
Where she was having a go at the ref and got in like a lot of trouble for it, and there was a lot of stuff online and on Twitter about how she should, she shouldn't be acting like that, but then the amount of male tennis players in the past that have had terrible attitudes, and that's just accepted.
John McEnroe used to break his rackets every and scream at the umpires, so how that's acceptable and hers isn't, it's mad.
it's just classic like society, like women's opinions should be like kept quiet into themselves when it's a new day and age. They should wear tighter kit. Hang on, to appeal to male audiences. Discourse.
Second part of there.
Yeah, there was a second part. It was just they should wear tighter kit. I think I had to write an essay on like female like beach volleyballers for the London 2012 Olympics, and like 80% of the audience that went was because of like the kit they wear. Like that was the appeal to them, which is
Or
just
the
so
kit they don't
bad.
wear.
Yeah, the kit they don't wear.
So I don't think I've ever considered that. I wouldn't ever go out thinking I'm wearing like this our netball dress for like a male audience.
Yeah.
I think it's quite crazy to think that people could have that like feeling.
Yeah, I definitely don't get that wearing cricket
Yeah.
whites. Almost.
We don't have that problem.
I mean, our shirts are pretty tight, but that I think is more performance.
Yeah,
based
it's just
rather
the-
than anything
yeah.
else. It's I don't think they'd ever change the kit to make it more appealing to men. I think it would only ever be if it was a performance enhancing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I look like I got hit by a truck after a game. Like the jersey's not going to do much. Yeah.
An inch off his shorts.
I think with this question it also implies that
We want.
we want a male audience and we'll do anything or whatever it takes to get a male audience acceptable, but showing more skin is not or wearing tighter clothes is not like the type of audience we even want to attract. We want to attract an audience that's excited about the sport,
Yeah.
not one that's
Yeah.
excited about
Yeah.
other things.
Do you wear boob protectors?
You
You know what?
don't.
I
That
don't
could be
get
quite
asked that,
controversial.
but we do get asked, do you wear a female box?
Yeah.
Because
Some
that's like a
people do,
pivotal
though.
part of men's cricket. Yeah, that's what I get asked that a lot.
Yeah.
And I used to get asked that a lot.
I suppose that's a boob protectors is like more
Yeah,
of a
chest
yeah.
guard.
For
Yeah.
us, it's probably more boob protectors
Yeah.
for tackling.
Yeah.
But
The answer is no. Nope.
I don't think it would help.
Especially, you're not meant to tackle with your boobs. I don't know why you don't protect them. I think that's absolute garbage. You never see a man going in for a tackle like this. I don't know why we're assuming that women do. That's bizarre.
It's probably like more ignorance than anything, like not
Yeah.
knowing about the sport
Yeah.
and just like throwing out like these comments.
It's a bit like a man wearing a cup in rugby.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of a similar situation, and they would obviously not do that, so why would we need boot protectors? It also look ridiculous.
With our tight jerseys.
Oh, this is a classic. You run like a girl.
Oh yeah.
For all ones,
Yeah,
yeah.
like,
I think everyone's heard that. That's place for
Yeah.
I feel like it's quite old now though.
Yeah.
Like no one would ever, well, no one in like the people that I know sort of use that kind anymore.
Yeah.
It's quite like old fashioned. Whether it's like more in youth, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it's that in the playground kind of you would
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
hear somebody saying that, and like you said earlier, like it could be quite detrimental to boys as well actually. So it's trying to change that attitude that actually if somebody says that, it's not an insult, making it.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that I find a little difficult is like I've seen the Nike ad, I've seen the ads that have come out about like, oh, you run like a girl, because I'm so involved in women's sport and have been for years, but I'm like, people that are on the edge might watch the odd game on TV, are they saying this too? Because like maybe it is way more prevalent still that people are saying that stuff because they're not surrounded by it as much as we are. So I think it's...
But then there are also so many amazing sportswomen and runners
Oh.
that now, like
Yes.
actually, hopefully to young girls, if someone says you run like a girl, they can see, you know, they put that to like Paula Radcliffe or like other amazing runners that they can now look up to and be like, actually that's a good thing, I want to run like, oh my god, who just won? Yeah, like there are so many like role models that they can look up to, and actually they can turn around and say, yeah, actually I want to run like a girl, I want to run like her, like that's a good thing, rather than it being an insult.
Women's sport isn't as good as men's.
I feel like it's similar to like the exciting one, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Just like the coverage, like when you're actually given the chance, you show how good the sport is.
Yeah.
So it is growing. So.
And it's trying to reduce the comparisons, I guess, in a lot of sports. You can't compare men's football to women's football because it's different. It's not as fast paced, but that doesn't mean it's not as good or not as exciting.
More skillful.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the less comparison there is between a men's sport and women's sport, the better, because it's exciting and it's fun and it's competitive in its own right.
That's like saying a women's 100 metre race is less exciting than a men's 100 metre race because it's run slower. Well, it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In comparison, they're exactly the same, and they're still as
Yeah.
exciting in their own right. It's just
Mhm.
stop comparing the two.
Yeah. Agreed.
Do you all shower together?
What a great one that is.
Well, I mean, most showers are communal, so you have to, unless you want to go in one by one and shower in about 4 hours.
Yeah.
Like,
We'll
that's
get back on the bus and be
nuts.
home by tomorrow.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, as any team probably does, yeah, everyone needs a shower, so depending if there's a cubicle shower or open shower, you have to shower, so yes.
It's,
Yeah.
it's interesting. We actually don't shower together. We've never had that in cricket.
Wait, but I think it's because a lot of us will ice bath after games and stuff.
Yeah.
And when we travel to away games, it's like a hot tub, isn't it? And it's kind of like
Yeah.
you just get in. Yeah, it's literally like a portable ice bath.
Yeah.
So if you got in there and like with no clothes on, then you got in the shower, you'd be a bit like, I'm not getting in that.
Yeah.
I'm not getting in that like water. So we all just wear like shorts and sports bra, and then
Yeah.
everyone showers at different
And then,
times.
yeah, you
People
can-
have chats, meetings,
Yeah.
and food, and then it's all a bit of a mismatch. So,
Yeah.
I
So
don't
we
really
do
know.
shower, to confirm, just probably not like.
Just to get that, we do shower.
But yeah, it's not really.
It's
It's never really been a thing, to be fair.
I feel like it's just more hygiene, like you
Yeah.
get sweaty then you shower. It's not like a big debate about,
Yeah.
oh, am I going to get in the shower? Like, do you know what I mean? You sort of just,
Yeah.
it's
Just
just
do it.
you do it to
Yeah.
get clean.
Why is
Yeah.
it again? Why is it any different to men finishing a game of rugby or a game of
Yeah.
netball or
Yeah.
cricket or whatever and going and having a shower to be clean?
So like a joint shower, it's just showering at the same time.
Yeah.
Shower time!
Wash each other's hair.
Men and women can't compete in sports because men are so much better and stronger. I wish those words didn't come out of my lips. But that's also like, yeah, competition, but in terms of training together, like for rugby or like wrestling, I know if you're like in a wrestling room, it does, you are separated by like weight classes. Like I was a wrestler back home, and yeah, for some training sessions I would just be practicing with guys, and that's how it was because it made both of us better. It's different wrestling styles. Like you can learn a lot from people, whether they are men or women. It was in the end just to become more skillful and get used to different styles. So you can compete, and yeah, they are typically stronger, but I don't think better is ever an appropriate term.
Yeah, we had a training match against the men's team the other day, and I think it was just like both teams wanted to better themselves. It wasn't sort of like they're going to come here and be better than us. It was sort of just like a training environment for like every athlete there to like perform and try their best. So, not really.
For me, like I grew up playing boys cricket because there weren't any girls teams, so like you either trained with the boys or you didn't train at all. And to be fair, like there was no prejudice from the boys. It was more the parents who thought it was an issue, whereas like the actual teammates like were supportive. And like it's fun to bowl boys out when you're a girl because like, the boys love it. So
Yeah.
I played, like, after boys cricket as well, I played men's cricket a lot back home as well, and yeah, it's the same. You actually get, on my team, the guys were always brilliant, they didn't have any issues, but then occasionally another team, you know, oh, you just got bowled up by a girl and things like that, so there's always those comments floating around, but once you actually get out on the pitch, they tend to disappear because actually they see that you're of the same ability as them and there's not an issue.
It's amazing when people step in too. I had to play, like we played with the boys until we were in high school, and we'd go and coaches would talk about numbers ahead of time, and me and my twin sister, the other coaches would be like, oh, you have 2 girls, and he's like, yep, so you're gonna match them, like we'll play a player down. He's like, and I remember to this day my coach looking at him being like, we have 2 rugby players here that happen to be girls, you'll match us numbers. And like that stuck with me so much that like a coach had confidence that I could be as like just as important as the boys on the pitch, and that was when I was probably 10. So I think it's also important just when you do hear stuff like that, like to just right the wrong right there and not just like let it slide.
Women's sport doesn't get funded like men's as it's not as popular / no one wants to watch it. Well, it doesn't get funded like men's, unfortunately, but
That part's true.
yeah, I would disagree because it's not as popular. Unfortunately, it's that you know, maybe that was the case 10 years ago, but now it is getting more popular. So it almost one needs to give before the other. People can't enjoy it if they can't see it. They can't. So you need to have, like, I would never have gone to watch netball, but like being here, I went to watch netball, and then I found myself watching the Super League final on Sky that day, and getting so into it because I could see it, I could watch it, I knew it was good. So until it gets funded, until it's on TV, a lot of people can't see it to know how good it is.
it's probably a bit switches to that, isn't it? So women's sport doesn't get funded like men's as it's not as popular. No, women's sport isn't as popular because it doesn't get funded like the men's sport. It's not as accessible for everyone. Therefore, not as many people know about the quality and the standard that's flying around.
Yeah. Like I've had quite a few comments in the last kind of couple of years, like, oh, women's cricket's well exciting, isn't it? Because the Super League's now been on Sky, people have now seen women's cricket on TV, whereas they wouldn't have before, and they get into it just as much as they would get into men's cricket because they can now watch it.
Yeah, I remember I was like in Tesco's the other day and I was wearing my Lightning stuff, and this man probably like 50 years old, like probably the least targeted like netball audience, came up to me and spoke about the World Cup that England had won, and it was just great that like because it's on TV, because of the coverage, like it's getting so many more people involved, and like not that it's not becoming exciting, it's always been exciting.
Yeah.
People can just now see it.
Yeah.
And like I suppose with rugby, the women's England programme now getting funded and now they're like professional, that's a great step forward, but kind of in comparison to where the men's was, and obviously it's in its infancy and the men's went through this stage however many years ago, but it's just a bit bonkers that it's taken this long for it to get even just to the international stage where, you know, they've won the World Cup however many years ago, they're doing so well in Six Nations without any funding. Look at our men, like they've done well, but nowhere near as well as the women, and yet we've only just got funding. It seems a bit mad that there's just that disparity.
Oh, that's a good one for me. Women playing rugby is not ladylike.
I don't know, I've been asked by, especially like you hear about old boys at the clubs, they're like, I was asked, why do girls even want to play rugby? And I was like, trying to as politely as it could be, like the exact same reason that a boy wants to play rugby, because it's exciting and you're with your teammates and it's aggressive and I can use my body. Like it's, yeah, again, it's kind of like the sexy thing. Like I don't, not in the gym to be ladylike, I'm not on the pitch to be ladylike. Like it's for so much more than that, and people that say stuff like that think sport is way more superficial than it is.
And what even is ladylike? What does that mean?
Yeah.
Like, you define it as your own thing. So, like I get asked a lot, oh, you're really girly, why do you play rugby? I'm like, well, that doesn't stop anyone from playing any form of sport. Like, yes, I dye my hair and I paint my nails and I wear eyelash extensions, but that doesn't mean that I don't want to play sport and take it seriously.
It's like when people are like, oh, you're too pretty for
Yeah.
it. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Like, thank you for not thinking I'm great ugly, but like, okay.
Yeah. It's mad, isn't it? We can ignore them.
Yeah.